I can't hear anything now, Elliot.
We're back. Sorry, I had you muted. We're good. Or I had us muted. Chris, can you hear us now? No.
I can hear you.
Okay, very good.
It's almost like you got two of them going.
Yeah.
We're done. Thank you.
It's like you're at a subway station.
All right, we are recording and we're live on YouTube.
All set? All right, call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hello, everybody. We'll start with the consent agenda. Before I call for a motion, does anybody want anything pulled off? No. Chris?
I'm good, Harry.
Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Comments, anything? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right. So, basically, after listening to the public, looking at a lot of just issues, we've been pushing administration to take sort of step out of the box, try to figure this thing out and get something done, significantly done and quickly. So with that, I'll turn it over to.
Good evening, everybody. So the core team in collaboration with the rest of the administrative team created a social emotional learning presentation and discussion, and listening to our community, our families, our board, each other, and just looking at our statistics. We wanted to share sort of what's going on in the world, the statistics that we have gathered to inform proposed actions, and also what is happening already here in district. Thank you, Elliot. If you could cue us up. We're going to start with broad strokes of statistics, the regional and county statistics. It is attached to your board docs as well, if you want to follow this way. So regionally, in state statistics, you'll see that reported domestic violence has gone up 30%. Reported child abuse, mental and emotional, has gone from 13.9 to 51.1%, very significant. Reported child abuse physical has gone from 55.5 to 11.3, an increase twofold. Job loss rates 3.64 to 6.49. Reported anxiety and depression 11% to 41%. And mental illness and substance use disorders have gone from 10% to 40%. You can see these increases are concerning, not just for our families, our community, and for our students. School connectedness, what we're finding, and we all know that school connectedness is very important to our students' well-being. Can you go to the next one? The school connectedness is defined by the American Psychological Association as a belief held by students that adults and peers in their school care about their learning as well as them as individuals. The Journal of Adolescent Health has a number of case studies on the importance of school connectedness as a protective factor in minimizing risk behaviors of all kinds, including bullying. Students who reported Students who reported greater sense of school connectedness reported less bullying incidents and less other risk behaviors such as alcohol and drug use. Other data from 2021, 37% of high school students reported they experienced poor mental health during COVID-19 pandemic, and 44% reported they persistently felt sad or hopeless during the past year. The new analysis also describes some of the severe challenges youth encountered during the pandemic. More than 55% reported they experienced emotional abuse by a parent or other adult in the home, including swearing at, insulting, or putting down the student. 11% experienced physical abuse by a parent or other adult in the home, including hitting, beating, kicking, or physically hurting the student. And more than a quarter, 29% reported a parent or other adult in their home lost a job. This COVID-19 pandemic, a comparison to school connectedness, this shows that students who felt a sense of connectedness to their school had feelings of sadness, 35%. Those who didn't have a connectedness, 53% felt, thank you, had a feeling of sadness. Those who considered suicide and had connectedness to school, 14% versus 26 who had no connection to their school. And attempted suicide, 6% versus a 12% who felt like they didn't have connectedness to their school. And this is profound. Fewer than 47% of youth reported feelings of school connectedness during the pandemic, but the other 53%. So here are some data points in NOBA we pulled from our school. Discipline referrals, the code of conduct. We used 18 and 19 because in between were the 2 years of pandemic. So we use them to use as sort of the baseline data. So 516 in 2021, 22, 505. And please note, to the side, 30.71% increase at the high school alone. So we had 332 incidents to date, up from 254 in 18-19.
So Laura, are there, I know it, I see what you're saying, but are those 23 one person? 19,
So I'm going
are those 19 people, is that one person or?
So we're just at the discipline referrals. I'll go down.
Yeah, I was
You're
just
going down
looking
to
at like the
suspensions?
suspensions, you know, is that,
So that's the number of incidents resulting in a suspension of 1 or more school days during the school year.
right, but if that's 19 out of school suspensions, but it's one student or two students that both have 9 day, you know, out of school days, that's different than if it's 19 different students.
We had, correct me if I'm wrong, we had about 3 or 4 students who had repeated offenses. Is that correct, Carolyn?
Yeah, so it depends on if we're talking about the OSS or ISS. We do have a small number of students who are responsible for several repeated suspensions, for sure. It depends on which you're talking about, the ISS or the OSS.
So Laura, so the, just looking at the first row discipline referral, out of the 505, 505 for 21, 22, 332 were from the high school. Okay, so.
And you'll see there's an increase in DASA incidents, 18, 19. There was 1, and those are the founded ones. Those aren't the ones that were submitted for investigation. And then we have 3. And right now we have 7 reports that are under investigation as of May 2022.
Laura, do you have the numbers of the ones submitted that were not found?
We can get that.
Yeah.
Because that would also make, just because they weren't found credible by the investigator, those numbers would also be probably important to know.
Yeah, we have them on file. We'll look into that. And then inpatient hospitalizations, mental health, 30% increase from before the pandemic, with only 2 hospitalizations during the pandemic. This doesn't include partial hospitalizations. And here are student discipline referrals in 18-19 and 21-22. You see high school 216 to 318. And middle school 200 and 136.
And how many of these were long-term suspensions?
These are referrals. These are just referrals. So those are incidents reported to be handled by the building.
Okay. So are we gonna get to suspensions at some point?
That was the previous one.
Right. That I was asking, how many of those are long-term suspensions? I mean, if we have 3 kids, 4 kids that are basically the root of all, not all, but the root of a lot of these incidents, shouldn't it be escalating?
Right,
So
so
long-term
if-
suspensions?
If they are suspended for more than 5 days, that's the superintendent's hearing, so that's actually. the principal.
And have we done any superintendent hearings for long term? Okay. And do you have those numbers here someplace?
No. We didn't get to that.
Hey, Laura, can I ask one question?
Sure.
So with all the statistics that we went through in the beginning of this slide, it kind of stands out to me that the Millbrook would drop so much. And my hopes is that we're not being overly lenient in some district, some schools and not others, because to drop that much is a pretty big drop with what we've gone through. And to see the spike in the high school, again, I'm just afraid of the consistency, that's all.
The kids get
I
older.
had a similar question, Chris. I mean, on the surface, are you talking at the middle school, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good news, right? If we're looking at the data, and however, if we're hearing an increase in parental reports with also a decrease, then how do we know things are being documented, I suppose? And I'm not saying that's happening, but we have to think about that. Is there a way to,
I mean, there's a whole bunch of questions that need to be, does the decline in the middle school correspond to one of those multiple offenders that now moved to the high school? If they were in whatever the last grade, I never get it right, 9th grade.
That's
Last one.
it was between data, so the entire set of middle schools should have moved
So
down.
if they move from middle school to high school and the high school numbers go up and the middle school numbers go down, that's even a more, yeah.
That's a big jump. So that's 111 referrals difference between, a 2-year period. I get your point, Perry, but I'm more concerned of just the leniency and, and I do think, we just have to make sure that the consistency is there with teachers and I can understand the hesitancy potentially from teachers, backlash. We just have to stand behind them, make sure everybody's doing the same as far as write-ups. And, again, this could be great news, but we also have to look at the potential of it really not being so great news, I guess. And I'm not saying it's either or, but.
I think it still goes to the fact, though, that when we're looking at the first page, a great deal of those suspensions or whatever they were related to a few kids. If one of those kids moves, they take all those with them if they're still getting those referrals. So, I think one of the things we have to really deal with is what do we do with kids that are getting 10 referrals or 10 suspensions? There's got to be something else. Anyway, I didn't mean to derail the presentation, but
But nasty young people become nasty old people. So as they hone their skills through middle school into high school, and that's where the numbers become glaring. You know, if they're not acting up in middle school, then what's happening in the high school that shoots the numbers up? So there's a disconnect in these numbers somewhere. I don't know what the reason is.
I would tell you that we are seeing a significant increase in vaping. That is probably the number one increase in referral that we're seeing.
As well as,
And it could also be that we're catching more of it because we have the detectors. So that is a huge area that we're seeing in the high school right now.
Mhm.
and others, I've seen patterns and behavior of just disrespectful behavior
Mhm.
and leaving campus without permission. Those have sort of been the ones that have been popping along with the vaping.
So disrespectful behavior, would that be towards an adult, towards a teacher, or towards another child? I mean, another student, sorry, here,
It would depend, and
but it could be either.
it could be,
Okay,
yeah.
do you know if,
No, and so when you're looking, and it could be one referral that has
Mhm.
multiple infractions
Yep.
listed. So it could be where, you know, in the course of a behavioral infraction, the student may have been disrespectful, may not have been where they're supposed to be that period. Maybe was caught vaping and then was disrespectful, and that could be like one behavioral incident with multiple infractions of the code of conduct. So when we're looking at that, the uptick that we're seeing is disrespectful behavior.
How many students are in high school?
Off the top of my head.
Yeah, what's the top?
283.
the high school?
283, and we have 318 disciplinary referrals, and I'm not saying it's it's high for a small district, for a small high school. Most students can get more than one discipline.
all right, so I mean, we're going through the numbers, but the important thing is, what are we gonna do?
Mhm.
I mean, what are we gonna do to the kids that feel like they're not safe? What are we gonna do with it? You know, I mean, are we seeing the vaping in the middle school? Do we have the sensors in all the bathrooms there? Yeah. I mean,
No.
there's stuff that and I'm hoping that's where you're gonna get to is, this is what we want to, this is what we think you should invest in. But anyway, I'll stop there about that.
Yeah, and just because the high school is at 318 doesn't mean it shouldn't be higher too. I mean, again, I'm not trying to shade these numbers, but it is high, like Howard said. But are we being passive at all, or is everyone being kind of following the same structure? If someone is disrespectful, is that detention for one teacher and kind of an ignore for another teacher type of thing? But again, I'll let you move on.
And we wanted to talk a little bit about the chronic absenteeism. So you'll see in this template, 18 and 19 and 21 and 22 per school. See the total number of students in Elm in 18, 19 is 24, and now 63.
And I think it needs to be noted also that during this year was the highest number of quarantines and isolations that we saw throughout this entire pandemic. When students were at home and they were not in contact with one another, we weren't having to quarantine or isolate as many other students per case. So one of the things with chronic absenteeism is it doesn't measure the type of absence. It's 10% or more absent upon instructional days. So when we're looking at this, we're not saying that 63 kids in Elm Drive were illegally or unexcused absence for 10% of the school days, but it's still a matter of that they were not in school connecting with the environment the adults there or benefiting from the instruction.
So this includes if they were absent due to isolation or quarantine. Okay. Right. They're still not in school.
They're not.
But I mean, this was something that you guys came to us, you know, there was a whole bunch of, well, if we put sports, kids will come back to school. If we do this, the kids will come back to school. We were at, I don't know, some ridiculous number of kids not in school. Or maybe it was with the high school, maybe it was more like not in all their classes. But it sounds like we're losing ground again.
But we're actually not, because in many of these cases, and I can bring you exact numbers at the next meeting if you want, in many of these cases, there were students who were placed on quarantine. Right, so they couldn't come to school.
Right, so if you could tease that out.
Yeah.
And just send it. That would be interesting.
And if you can compare the slide that you had showed us, I don't know when it was at this point, when we initially spoke about it, like Perry had said, if we can compare those two, then we'll get a good idea if it's improving or not.
Yeah, so that was at this time last year, Chris.
Okay. I mean, the key is, you know, we're not going to do anything about COVID. I mean, we're not going to, you know, decide that we've got, you know, Millbrook's going to do 3 days of quarantine because we just know better than New York State, although maybe we do, but that's a different subject. But there's certain things like that I don't know if we can fix if they're really related to how many times a kid is quarantined. You know, we probably need to do more to keep those students in, like, participating in school. But the behavioral stuff is what we need, in my opinion, and I'll leave it up to the rest of the board. The behavioral stuff is what we got to focus on.
Yeah, and I think they're largely connected, right? When you look at the school connectedness piece. So if these students aren't here, school connectedness is taking, you know, a hit every time they're absent for a period of time, whether it's because of COVID or it's because they're not showing up. So it does present a different set of challenges in addition to anything that we were facing before, right? So with that being said, we did mid-year open and I don't remember exactly what month it was, but we opened the virtual learning again for students who were placed on quarantine or were in isolation. They were able to attend from home so that, you know, they weren't waiting for a tutor, which was particularly challenging as well. So we did attempt to keep them in the fold while they were out as well.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm tired of listening to the reason that they did it is because of COVID. The reason they're not here is because of COVID. The reason that they're ticked off is because of COVID. I'm tired of listening to that. There are kids that have multiple, you know, repeats. That there are, you know, vaping. If I'm sure somebody thinks they're vaping because of COVID. Why, I have no idea, but, you know, and I get that. I mean, I get the attendance part, but the behavioral, you know, the bullying, the disrespect of teachers, disrespect of staff, this has got to stop.
Disrespect of fellow students.
Oh, yeah, both, exactly. Anyway, keep going.
So we're trying to just show you that there is a lack of connectedness in so many ways and how it impacts the behavior and the mental health of our students, as well as their academics. You're looking at 37% of our high school students reported poor mental health, sadness, hopelessness, abuse. That's what we know statistically, countywide, statewide, nationally. We're saying that that is hitting us here in Millbrook as well. We have parents who have lost their jobs. There's no food in the refrigerator. They're trying to watch their kids while they're at remote and trying to keep their job. There's no connectedness when we were remote. And even when we were here, there were kids who were still remote. They were still wearing their masks. Their teachers were 6 feet away from them. Their friends were 3 feet away from them. This has to take a toll on our kids and our staff and our community overall. So this will present behaviors that we have to figure out how we can
But Laura,
manage
you
and
know,
monitor.
instead of making excuses for behavior, I'm sure that there are some bullies that enjoy coming to school every day to torture their prey. And that's the crux of this, where we're trying to get to. We
I don't think
cannot
it's-
sit here and just, okay, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. That's great. We should do these things. But what do we do starting tomorrow, school day, to stop the student upon student bullying? That is of more concern to myself anyway. If children do not feel safe to come here, then you're failing in the educational mandate by the state. And then this board is failing in that mandate.
Well, these aren't excuses. These are reasons, and we need to figure out why there are behaviors and figure out ways how we're going to monitor the behavior so that all of our students feel safe and healthy at our
If it
school.
means writing up the bully and
that's-
suspending, I don't care how much paperwork has to be done, then that's what needs to be done.
Right, so that's part of it, absolutely. I mean, that's why we have a code of conduct. But we also have to set plans for people of how to help support them in behavior and how to, that school psychologists, social workers.
But not over the rights of the victim. You know, this is great. We're thinking pie in the sky. We're gonna help the bully. The bully has a problem. In the meantime, the victim is, oh, well, you gotta put up with it, because if you're gonna err on the side, you follow laws protecting bullies. But the law may be the law, but we're not gonna go overstep to say, well, the victim has to suffer because the law says we have to protect the bully.
That's not the message that I'm sending, nor is the district sending to our
That's-
families who
I
are being
agree. I
bullied.
do not
or
wanna
those
send
who
that
are-
message.
who are- That is not the message. We are responding with our code of conduct, with our investigations. We're absolutely taking every report seriously. But there's also, these are short-term and they have to be long-term plans. That's intentional and strategic planning around social emotional learning. It won't happen overnight. It will take time.
You can stop bullying overnight.
Yeah, Laura, can I ask a question? Are we assuming that the 37% that went through this and all the numbers, are we assuming those are the bullies, or are we assuming those are the victims? Because, you know, that's a big difference. I think a lot of people that have mental health issues and have, you know, are going through issues, a lot of times those are the victims. You know, some kids prey upon that. So I don't know. Yes, I don't disagree with the numbers and everything that you're going through, but I don't know if there's a pure connect to saying those 37% of our bullies. So I think, you know, a lot of this has to be extrapolated and kind of pulled out and see if there's repeat offenders and see if there could, you know, what they're, you know, how often they're in school and look at it that way. But, you know, I do agree with Howard and Perry. We just have, you know, to start sooner than later, really kind of laying out a plan to all the teachers, and everyone has to, you know, abide by it.
All right, so, I mean, I get it. I think we all get it. There's a long-term plan. We've got to, you know, figure out why kids are sad, why their parents are out, you know, things that we probably can't help with, like why you know, their parents are out of work. But there's also some stuff, and we started to talk about it last time, where kids that don't feel safe should have a place to go, a person to go to. And that shouldn't be the end of it. That should be the person that like protects them and make sure the process moves forward. That, you know, if this is the 3rd offense, if this is the 9th offense, then the kid, I hate to say it, but the kid needs to go on long-term suspension. And if we have to connect them up or find a way to educate them at home, that's what we have to do. But we cannot have students that do not feel safe coming to school, leaving school, you know,
What, roughly, you said most of the suspensions are, or just discipline referrals or vaping and leaving school?
No, that's probably where the greatest uptick is.
That's the greatest uptick. Okay. Okay. But
Right.
just as many,
I mean, I can. give you
just,
the breakdown.
well, I guess what I'm trying to think is this truly a district-wide problem regarding bullying, or is it within a specific cohort? I don't know if we can discuss that at the moment, but that would be important to know.
I mean, the
Well,
bottom.
and we can identify that data as well. Some of it, I think we need to be careful because it starts to teeter on getting towards protected information, but we can give.
Well,
the
I mean,
disaggregated
if you
data.
have to do a more intense intervention, short term with a specific grade or building, I mean, we need to know that versus a general.
The thing to keep
More
in
general.
mind, this has to be in the administration's plan to fix this. I mean, it's not our job. It's our job to say, yeah, we can find the money, you know, or yeah, we can, you know, I don't know, put another building up to whatever. But this needs to be a plan from the administration that says, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna add this person, we're gonna do this thing, we're gonna do this thing. And in a month, we're gonna see if it's made an improvement. If not, we might have to add another person. We might have to add another SRO. Whatever it is, we need to have a plan from administration that this is what we believe will fix this problem, or at least, if not completely get rid of it, make significant improvements over time. And then we need to measure, trust but verify. So, because, if I keep going back to that first chart, if the majority of those suspensions are 1, 2, 4 kids, that's the problem. That's a big problem that we should be able to deal with,
And not wait till next school year. And this is something that needs to be done now. The board is oversight. Like Perry said, we provide you with what you need, but you have to do the work to prevent this. That's what you're getting taxpayer money in your salaries for. We're not running a day school for bullies. We need to come up with, and it's we meaning you, because the board's mandate is for you, administration, come up with it and stop the day-to-day, student to student. I don't know how you do it. I really don't care how you do it. But that's your job. Do it.
So do you want to get to, I know we've been completely uprooting your presentation, but do you want to get to the part where here's what we want to do?
Well, we wanted to show the community and the board the things that we are doing and that we have started. And when we have had we've started these conversations. And when we've heard our parents, we've heard our kids. And the things we wanted to put in place now as we try to work on that short-term, long-term plan. So Caroline's going to just talk about what's going on in each of the buildings to work on fostering and creating a culture of care and kindness.
And you'll see some of this is repetitive throughout the buildings because one of the things that we know about social emotional learning, as well as, the specific issue of bullying, is that there really needs to be systemic changes. So the Yale ruler is something that you'll see throughout the entire district. We also increased to 1 full-time psychologist on staff at Elm Drive. If you recall, their psychologist was shared between Elm, Alden, and the Committee for Preschool Education. So now Elm Drive has a dedicated psychologist. They also had a presentation for the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse. The question did come up from someone who had reviewed this presentation. what about staff training? And just so you are aware, at the end of last year, all of our staff was actually also trained in the center by the Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse as well. And I think you might remember that Red Coffee also did a presentation for the board last year. So that was the same presentation. Additionally, in the K2 building on Drive, all of the classrooms are utilizing the mood meter in a kid-friendly form that is color-coded to match or to mimic the mood meter, I should say. Next slide. Which this is the zones of regulation. So students are able to identify where they are in terms of what color they're in, and then also work on ways in which they can start to shift their mood if they so choose. The entire building read the book, The Color Monster. So this is very related to the work. It's actually a book related to the Yale Ruler Project, Elliot. So it's about a character who goes through sort of all of the feelings, and it helps them to sort of normalize emotions and start to understand that emotions are very normal, and also start to understand that when we feel something, we can't necessarily act how we feel, even if we feel that way. We're also trying to connect younger students with older students. So these are our pre-kindergarten friends reading with first grade buddies. So our first graders are reading to them, and our pre-kindergarten friends, as they start to explore the joy of reading, are also telling our older students stories as well. In our buildings, you'll see here and as well in our other buildings, there's trees of kindness that were put up by the PTO, and they were blooming throughout the week. So there are 2 pictures there just to show that as students were caught being kind, there was a little heart. You may not be able to see, some of them are very faint because they're just white on white or white on beige wall. So hard to see from here, but there are little hearts there for the kindness effort that is happening. Mr. Sater and his staff are doing a program for caught being good. So caught in the act of being a good citizen, caught red-handed, with a little wanted poster for good behavior. In Alden Place, you'll see some of the same things with the Yale Ruler and mood meter implementation. Ms. Pulver and Mr. Lipka are working on a kindness club. So they had their first meeting this past week, and the students really enjoyed that. You can see them writing kind little messages on the front walkway of Alden Place. We also had, again, the kindness club, the kindness tree rather, which was populated by students caught being kind to one another. The Grace Smith House did a presentation on anti-bullying. That was a couple of weeks ago now. Again, because of the addition of a school psychologist, we now have Ms. Pulver dedicated to the Alden Place building. Ms. Boson, who is the library media specialist in the building, and Mrs. Pulver have been doing integrated social emotional learning lessons. And again, Mrs. Tokars, who is our occupational therapy assistant, and Ms. Pulver are working on having students use their zones of regulation in the classroom to identify their emotions, how they're feeling, what their body feels like, and how to manage different emotions as they come to us. In the middle school, again, you're going to see some of the same as we are doing some of this throughout the district. So we have Yale Ruler projects. We also have coordinated home base activities. Home base is an advisory period in the middle of the high school, where one of the things that research shows is when you take a population of students and you put them into smaller groups, that they're able to connect with that adult in a better way. So there are advisory periods. Every student is assigned to one in the middle and high school, similar to like a homeroom that elementary students would enjoy. So there's coordinated set of activities using the CAMFL character education curriculum, and most of that is coordinated by the school counselor in the middle school, Ms. Mahoney. The Grace Smith House also did anti-bullying assemblies for the middle and high school, and we have a Dutchess County CAPE assembly for students. So CAPE is a Council for Addiction Prevention and Education. So they will be coming to speak to our students. And also they will be speaking to our families at some point. With the blind spots presentation, they weren't available for Family University. So we're bringing them back at a separate time. And that has to do with the risks associated with vaping and whatnot. We have the James's Warrior presentation, and that was about mental health and suicidal awareness. And then we also have the Seminar 6 for all 6th graders, and also the creation of the 6th grade pod. So Seminar 6 is a class that helps students transition into the middle school. So not new, but it's part of how we support SEL. So this is the Campbell Education, Character Education curriculum. It talks about overcoming insecurity, working together, moving beyond the bully, taking control of your life, and also cyberbullying awareness. So this was a spreading kindness effort, spreading smiles in the middle school. So that's just some efforts from the middle school. And in the high school, again, you'll see some of the same things. So the ruler training, the James's Warriors Assembly, Grace Smith House Assembly, and the Dutchess County Cake Assembly, which is coming. I don't have the date on that. I've forgotten actually. And
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Have you thought about as, I'm just making up the name, seminar 9, or
we actually have been talking
students
about that for
starting
next year.
high school? Okay.
Yeah, we have been talking about that and looking at the structure. So a middle school schedule, because of the cohort model that middle schools follow,
Mhm.
it's a little bit easier to stick it into the rotation. So we've actually been looking at creative ways to try and do sort of like a soft landings 9th grade seminar, freshman seminar, so to speak. So our next steps for Yale, the Yale Women Project from the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale University is to continue and expand that district-wide. We also have May 19th, this Thursday. We will have Family University, and we will be bringing Family University back. It was a regular thing prior to the pandemic, so we'll be bringing it back for next year as well, hopefully with additional multiple offerings next year. We will be revising the website to make the DASA information more visible. I know that that was something that had come up, that it was challenging to find it on the website, so we're going to give it more prominent presence. This summer, we will also be reviewing the DASA policy and the code of conduct. We are going to be having a district wellness panel to bring in some experts from legal experts, mental health experts, and Frank from Northern Westchester's regional safety. We have also secured funding through a grant for the Branching Minds, which is a curriculum and a warehouse for different SEL interventions, but it also has interventions for academics, behavior, and attendance as well. So a good portion of the things that you have just seen that are problematic. So we will be bringing that in. The nice thing about Branching Minds is it sort of catalogs all information together. So if we're looking at one student, we can see their behavior, their attendance, how they are reporting on SEL screeners themselves, and then also what their academics are looking like. So we can sort of see the entire wellness of a student, as a student right there in one spot. What also happens is based on screeners, and these are screeners that parents would have to consent to, but based on social emotional screeners, we would be able to see where a student is reporting social emotionally in certain risk categories, and we would actually be able to match them with tiered interventions using Branching Minds. The interventions that are in there are evidence-based and they're research-backed. So this will be really beneficial in terms of trying to, like you were saying, Howard, if we have particular students that are really at risk for these behaviors, then we might be able to target them more specifically with different interventions than just the broad community. We're also going to be using funds for Olveus, which is a Clemson University anti-bullying and SEL program. And then we will be having presentations from Listen in the fall. We did intend to have them now, but they weren't available for any spring presentation. So we've been in contact with them. I know they did meet with some leaders within our building and Mr. Sythe and Ms. Mitchell, but they aren't able to actually present to the student body until the fall. So back to the Olveus curriculum. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So
Okay.
what was the seminar they had today at the high school?
That was from the Grace Smith House on anti-bullying.
I mean, from what I heard, it didn't go well. There was a lot of disrespect. There was a lot of, at an anti-bullying type of seminar, which is kind of disheartening, but I think it was an opportunity, if it hasn't been taken, to really kind of point out those kids and discipline right in front of their peers. Again, I won't go into detail, and I only mention it because, you know, I'm sure many parents heard of it today. But if we have these seminars and they're not being, you know, effective because of the disruptors, it kind of defeats the purpose. So I just figured it was important to mention that. Again, I just think there should be ground rules for the kids when they go into these seminars, and if they're not followed, you know, there's discipline.
So the Alveus program, this is what I was speaking about, backed by 40 years of research. And it's based on the premise that cases of bullying are often a product of a wider culture of victimization, and it attempts to tackle the entire school ecosystem so that bad behavior can no longer flourish. So that it really becomes a culture that this is not the way we behave, this is not how we treat one another. So it starts with relevance building to sort of get the baseline that this is a problem here, right? So they're surveying both students, staff, parents, and then there's relaying the information from those surveys back to those who are within the school's culture. And then they work with the school district to create clear expectations and predictable consequences. So some of that would be reviewing the code of conduct and maybe making recommendations. And then also it works with the adults in the school system to show them how their role as role models of expected behaviors and teaching them about zero tolerance to victimization. And then there's training. So there's specific training based on the location of the incidences. So they'll be looking at data with us and looking at where these where the locations where these incidences are occurring most often. And then it would be specific training for those locations. So say it's mostly happening on the playground, and there would be training for those that are supervising the playground during recess and whatnot. And then there's training for all different types of personnel, and it's all personnel. So it's from the principal to the counselors, to the teachers, to the monitors, to the custodians, you know, the food service folks. So whomever comes in contact with students will be participating in some kind of training, even bus drivers as well would be offered this training. So there's all different programming that's included in the Alveus, and some of it is classroom level, some of it is building level, and some of it is district level. So in a study of 200 schools in Pennsylvania, after the implementation of the Alveus program, they reported 2,000 less bullying cases in just 2 years. So they did see, you know, a decrease in those cases. So we're excited to be able to be starting some of that. And then Laura, do you want to speak to the last?
Sure. Yeah, and the last is a staffing recommendation. All of that. So yes, we want all of our students to come to school feeling happy and safe, and not all of them are. So we have made great gains and moves and taken action, but we need more. We need to do more, absolutely. And so we need help. We need more staffing to help us with this work. We have the ability to use grant funding to fund 2 positions. That would be Counsel on Addiction Prevention and Education, Kate for short, counselor, and an SEL coordinator. It would be an administrative position, but could really help us coordinate family engagement, follow up with parents, help us with the DASA investigations, help us coordinate that pre-K to 12 program so that it's done with fidelity. And so they would be a great help to moving towards a culture that is safe, caring, and kind for all of our students. I mean, that's what we want. We want all of our students to be entering the door smiling, and we want them to be leaving at the end of the day smiling as well. And so we feel that the steps we've taken are great. We need to do more, as Caroline went through the list of what we propose to do, and that we would, to do that, from in a great, powerful, impactful way that we hope will be extremely successful would be those addition of those two positions.
Why wouldn't we want to add another SRO? I mean, it seems like so far, from what I've heard, Mike is an integral part of the school. Nobody treats, oh shit, oh, sorry. Oh God, the cops are here, you know, they treat him like he's a, you know, part of the family. But they feel, at least from what I've heard, they feel safe talking to him. Why wouldn't we want to have, and this is really, I think this stuff is great because it's going to address the school itself. But I think there's a few kids that are going to call this all just BS and not going to pay attention to it because whatever. If we had another SRO, first of all, Mike wouldn't be bouncing from school to school. We could, the other SRO could basically take these complaints, look into them, you know, not just, hey, you know, Howard just bullied me, so now we would kick Howard out, but look into it, check the video, talk to other kids. And if these are repeat offenders, use the state law that allows us to long-term suspend them. I mean, to me, if we had another SRO that was semi-assigned to taking care of the victims of bullying, you know, listening to them, taking the information, figuring out, is this the 15th time I've heard of this kid, or I'd never heard of him before, and I'm just throwing this out. I mean, to me, these actions are going to take a while to make a change. You know, I mean, hopefully they'll make it fairly rapidly. But if we had another SRO on tomorrow, kids would have a place to go. And I think everybody right now, between all the, you know, well, we got a half teach in school, half teach out of school, you know, where the teachers have to do all these things. The administration's got 27,000 things on their calendar, on their plate. You know, having somebody else that was strictly responsible for safety. It's just, and again, I mean, you know, I'm not telling you we have to do it, but to me, that would, I would think that would be a great addition. Plus it would help with the safety of the school. You know, maybe one is always on the hill and one is bouncing, you know, on the bottom of the hill.
It's also like, what about, because I know Chris brought it up, I brought it up about more people in the school, more monitors, more supervision. And, you know, if you hear that a lot of this stuff is happening in I don't know, stairways where there's no cameras, and this might be a naive question, can't we put someone in the stairway in between classes? Like, you know, I don't know the high school very well, but I'm wondering, you know, we asked if you guys needed more monitors or more supervision, and we were told no, but now it seems like we do. And if it's mostly in the high school, can we, you know, get some part-time? And I know through COVID, we had difficulty hiring people like that, but, and I do think this stuff is great too. But I do think it's gonna take time. I think we need to immediately address what is going on. What is the long-term? I mean, I looked at the code of conduct. What is the long-term? If it's 1 or 2 students and they've been suspended 4 times, you know, again, they do have rights. And I believe that these kids are bullying because of a situation at home or in the family, or, you know, and it's sad, you know, that they feel that they have to do that. And I know that they're troubled, they need help, but so does as to Howard's point, the victim. And we really need to stand up for them. And if we have to spend the money to hire, you know, 7 people to stand at all 4 corners of the high school and or the middle school, I'm sure that we can find the money and the board will vote on it. I think immediate action really needs to be taken in the high school specifically. I guess the numbers are up, whether it's an SRO officer, assistant vice principal. But my other question too is about the teachers and the reporting. You know, if stuff is happening in the classroom, are they reporting it? You know, are there cameras in the classrooms? What's going on?
There's not cameras, but how is it, if it's in our code of conduct, that you're not supposed to have a cell phone? But these kids have their cell phones in the classroom. I mean,
But
if we
the teacher
can't,
tries to take it away or tells you to take.
right, but if we
immediately
can't
the parents are
implement,
arguing that
if we
they have
can-
to-
Right,
we-
but that's in the
but if
code
we,
of conduct.
it's in the
It
code of
says that
conduct.
it goes to the whoever.
If we
superintendent's
can't-
office, principal's
If
office,
we
or something
can't
like that.
implement a basic
Yeah, if you're letting this slide and that slide.
X leads to Y,
Or is
I
the
mean,
teacher not doing it because the principal doesn't want it done? It's a whole.
well,
we
then
don't
they're not
know.
following the code
We
of conduct.
don't
Howard.
know.
Right.
We're
Well,
not
we don't
here.
know.
We don't.
But I mean, we do know, if you take a look at, Caroline and Laura, on your own, I mean, they did find the Olveus program, and I mean, that is absolutely based on research, what I would have recommended long-term, but I want to give them credit for that because they found that on their own. If you take a look at those recommendations, though, what they're going to be doing in terms of training, it's not like we don't have some idea what to do, right? I mean, we are responsible for educating and keeping our children safe. So if we look at the components of the Olveus program, even though those trainers won't come in for a while, what can we do in the immediate? I mean, supervision is huge within that program and training. So what can we do in the next 25 days before the end of the school year to really go out with a bang in a good way? It's hallways, playground, cafeteria. You find it on New York State Ed website on their bullying page.
Right,
That those are the unstructured areas, and that's where you need. And it will help with your vaping.
But
And
if-
how are kids leaving school?
But if you.
Are they,
if it-
they're not stopped, they're not seen? I mean, right, if you look at just that, how are they, no one's stopping them, no one's there? Where are they,
I mean, that's not necessarily true either.
but I want to know, like, how are they?
We're not a secured campus and students make bad choices, right? And there are consequences for making those choices. So you can encourage a student to return to the building,
But-
you can't.
But again, I
Right,
think
back.
there's two different subjects here. There's the
There's-
subjects of kids leaving school grounds. Dr. Fink wrote, when I went to Arlington, that's where you park your car if you wanted to get out of school and go take the car out. I mean, I heard, that's what I heard. But
I didn't know.
there's two, yeah. But there's two issues. I mean, there's an issue of vaping, right? Yeah, we gotta put the sensors in the middle school, we gotta, whatever. But there's also, if we go back to page 1, 80%, I'm making up the percentage of these suspensions are 4 kids. What are we gonna do about those 4 kids? And do right now? I mean, and if it takes, getting an SRO on or getting, a different type of counselor, whatever, to deal with that. And if they've got 2 more and they've had 4, then they should appear before one of these, and the board has the right to suspend them too. So maybe we have to go set up a follow-on process where, if the SRO brings it to us, I don't know, but we need to take a dramatic step towards the safety of, especially if the number of suspensions really are like basically 4 kids. I know we can't kick them out of school. We can't just pull that right away from them, but there has to be something we can do. And I worry about monitors because obviously the kids that, we brought the Grace thing in, and it sounds like the kids were, and I don't know if it was all of them, some of them, the same 4, but they were disrespectful as hell to the people presenting. They're disrespectful to the teachers. They're disrespectful to the administration. So obviously, putting monitors on that are paid, whatever, and really have no responsibility. I mean, they can't, or no, I don't want to say authority to get to the principal. Yeah, I'm not going to the principal, and away they go.
Now they're witnesses.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, to me, I think we've got to, I like this, I really do. But I think there's an additional step we need to take. And maybe it's, you know, I don't care if it's an SRO or what we call it. But that person is there when they're getting on the bus, getting off the bus. That person is there, and I don't mean just a small group of people. I mean, that's where they are. They're there to talk to the kids. Hey, oh yeah, they bullied you on the bus this morning. What do you mean? You know, maybe some of it is just, you know, they can also talk to them about ways to handle it. But I mean, I would think someone like an SRO would have the authority, would have the, whatever you want to call it.
And I think we just need to be.
Well, Perry, I think we should definitely talk to our attorneys about the role of SROs. SROs are not a certified school administrator. There's certain things in investigations they can do and they can't do. And we don't want to turn it into, like, you know, from a school to a prison overnight. I mean, I just think there's you know, a role for them. And I think we got to figure out what that role is if we add somebody on or work together. They're definitely parts of investigations, but, you know, they can't just be charged with, you know, they're not a school administrator. And you know, and I think we got to check our policies with that. I think it'd be a great addition, but it should be in conjunction with, and, you know, these families and kids that are doing this.
You're breaking up, Paul.
We're not going to solve it. We're not going to solve it all overnight. It's a lot of different pieces that have been presented, and it's a lot of different pieces that have to come together. And it's a little bit about it's a lot about school safety. It's a lot about the SEL that they're talking about and getting to the root of the problem. You know, if we have to take consequences, for sure, but even when a kid's suspended, say, pretend.
You're breaking up, Paul. Paul, you're breaking up.
So I spent a lot of time over the last couple of years, my first couple of years in Millbrook, and before I came here, Elliot, can you mute him?
What has changed that kid going back and doing so? Actions have to be under. I think we have to plan with a little bit of everything, maybe. You know.
So prior to coming to Millbrook and my first couple years at Millbrook, I participated in training SROs for the region. Actually, there's a very fine line in what they, like Paul was saying, what they can be a part of, because students have rights and they don't check their rights at the schoolhouse door. So we have to be very careful that we're dealing with educational law while students are in the building, unless there is a crime in progress and then an SRO can step in. So we do have to be careful of that. They have a great SRO is a great asset.
Yeah, I don't want the SRO handcuffing kids in the hallway.
Yeah.
I mean, but having someone that, and it sounds like Mike does some of this now, having someone that, you know, I'm in a bad place today, can sit down with the SRO and get sort of an independent, you know what I mean? An independent view of life. And if it keeps where that, you know, hey, I would assume Mike would go to one of you two and say, I've had 7 complaints against so-and-so in the last week. And that would be, in my opinion, that would be the end of his responsibility, her responsibility. And then it becomes us to do whatever to get that resolved. But if it's really as small I mean, it sounds like it's a large number of offenses by a small number of people. And if that's the case, then we should do this, because when we fix one person, somebody else is going to start. So you need a plan like this that addresses this continuously. But I think we need to, and maybe it's only a temporary thing. Maybe we only need a person for a year until we've dealt with it until, and then we come back and say, additional SRO isn't really working out, but maybe we should add another SEL coordinator. I'm just making it up, but I think we've got to do something now.
Hey, Perry. On a broader scale, I mean, we have some amazing teachers out there, but I think there's a disconnect as far as, each teacher, and of course, they're going to have their own way of teaching and disciplining and everything else. But I think on a district level, we should pull them all together with the principals and the administrators as presenters and go over the code of conduct, the expectations, and try to put everyone on the same page. Because I'm sure if you sat down with a teacher and said, okay, who distracts your class? Who bullies kids? I mean, the teachers are in the know. They know who these people are or these kids are. But I think if we're all on the same page, it would help. I mean, that's the kind of the broader scale. And then of course you have to actually follow through. But
So what are we talking about as far as, I just lost it, as far as the cost? We have an idea of what you're asking for two
Yeah.
people,
Yeah,
maybe
the
three.
CAPE is $50,000 a year. And the sub-coordinator administrative position is, what did we allocate to remember?
So we have the chief counselor we can cover for 2 years out of the ARP grant.
Okay.
And we have about 80% of the SEL coordinator also covered out of the ARP
So Kevin, we don't need any money.
That's what I agree.
Well, so can we look at, again, maybe it's only a temporary position, but somebody's got to step in and if we have kids that don't feel safe, especially if it's 4, and I keep using the number 4, it could be, but if it's 4 kids that are causing 90% of the problem, then we and that person is really not there to go, challenge the bully, but somebody that can be there to make these kids feel safe. We should look at what that would cost to add, even if we can't do it with a grant. We'll have to find money. I mean, is everybody, we all okay with that?
I would like to know if that would make our students feel safe, an extra SRO. Is that what's going to make them feel safe coming to school?
And it doesn't need to be an SRO. It needs to be somebody that they can go to, that they're confident that, the person knows the rules, knows what to do about it, that they will not just, fill out a form and that's the end of it. Having another SRO also gives us more safety in the schools.
A presence.
I like that.
But you could do, but it would have to be quick, a quick survey of all high school students. And if they do need to report something, or if they have, who have they gone to in the past? Was it a teacher? Was it school psychologist? Was it a guidance counselor? And if there's a common theme, really work there. Are we, the bully individuals engaging in inappropriate behavior too, if you're hearing a lot of reports, this person, are they being referred for some type of counseling? Is that happening? I hope so, because if they're engaging in that type of behavior, they must be pretty troubled. So, and even, or you can take a very immediate, almost dramatic approach and just do a 10-minute wellness check. Across, it would take about a whole week, but really, every kid's going to go into the school psychologist for 10 minutes and some kids might not consent or parents might not consent. They still go in that room and they go out. So nobody knows who's actually being spoken to. And it might take 1 minute for one kid, 10 minutes for another, but you'll get a sense of what's happening with each child. You could do that in a week.
I also think, and I've mentioned this before, it's kind of a chance to reinvent the detention and the in-school suspension of, what are they actually doing during that time? Or are we taking advantage of that to really talk to the kids that are repeatedly in trouble? And, having a social worker type like person going in there and doing a one-on-one with them. I mean, I don't know. I mean, to Howard's point before, I don't think all bullies in elementary school are bullies in high school. I've seen a lot of kids change over the years that I've kind of, followed my kids through school. But there are a lot of kids that do repeat. And I just think we're missing an opportunity if we don't, also work with them to see what their problems are and trying to help them.
No, I agree with you, Chris. I mean, I think that we need to change the school, as basically as they presented. But there needs to be a dramatic step now to make sure that, kids aren't coming to school because they're afraid. They should have some, and if you guys want to talk, survey the students, say, would you prefer an SRO to a whatever, to do these things to help you with, whatever issue, but specifically to make sure that the victims that are, the result of those 4 kids or 6 kids, whatever it is, are being heard and being helped, not just heard. So, I mean, does anybody on the board have a problem with the plan and of adding a person, whatever we call it, whatever the, because we're going to end up having to pay for that other person. And eventually we're going to have to pay for the other 2 because once the grant runs out, but, so be it.
Well, this is a problem that's been for decades long. It'll be a problem going forward. I don't think it's a bad thing to do it now and invest in the future. So I'm perfectly fine with it.
Oh, you okay?
Yes. I agree.
That's pretty cool, Paul. You work discos and stuff too? We can't hear a word you're saying, buddy.
I think, yes, I think it's great.
It's great.
That was what I
Yes, it was a great idea. Okay, good. You guys okay?
Yes.
Good. Howard, you okay?
I would like to see the job description
Yeah.
for these 2 proposed staffing recommendations.
So, well, we need a motion to do that, right? So can you guys for the next meeting come back with a motion that, we want to hire a, whatever it is? Elliot, can you- and same thing, you can survey the kids. If you can survey the kids to find out what would be the type of person, is it another monitor? Is
Perry,
it
can you hear me?
you start to talk about,
I agree.
Thank you.
thank you for your yes vote, Paul.
You could do it in the chat.
So if we can act on that at the next meeting. All right. All right, everybody good? Chris, you okay?
I'm good.
All right. Next. Any questions from the public? 3 minutes. Yeah.
You guys were just having this conversation, but you have a student who's right here, who's been dealing with it since the 6th grade, who at the last month of 6th grade didn't want to go to school. from the same kid that I emailed you guys about yesterday, who's still a problem, who in 7th grade was throwing balls of tinfoil at them in the cafeteria. And when they asked the monitors if they could report it, they were told, oh, they do that to everybody, and didn't do anything about it. Who got shoved on the staircase numerous times. The number of times they went to the office and reported it. I never got a phone call. I was never told anything about it. And it continued on in 8th grade, and it's the same kid. Now, the field trip was May 5th. That kid already has a proposed safety plan from the principal. This issue happened back in March, and they haven't gotten anything. So where this is being applied fairly and consistently, that's just 2 cases 2 months apart where it's not being applied fairly and consistently. I've been going through the code of conduct. The code of conduct is actually very good. It's just not being applied. Just the issues my child had in middle school from the same kid, the first, second, third offense, that kid should have been suspended, and it never happened. It didn't happen all through middle school, and it's still not happening now. The kid gets kicked out of class on a regular basis for being disruptive, and still nothing seems to happen. They've gone to the principal all through middle school, and they didn't help them. So now they're in the high school, and nobody's bothering going to the principal because they've already learned and been conditioned that nothing happens. So everybody, all the teachers know that I had a problem with this specific student. So they go on a field trip, broken up into groups with chaperones, and then they go into the exhibit areas, okay. And instead of staying in their groups with their chaperone, they're let go through the entire exhibit area, and the chaperones went to go look at whatever they wanted, and nobody kept an eye on a situation that they knew was ongoing. And so it was able to continue, and nobody did anything about it. So we have in the code of conduct what happens at first, second, third instance. It's in the code of conduct that the teachers and the staff are mandated to apply the code of conduct if they know that something like this has happened. That's not being done. It's also in the code of conduct about when pins can be applied in order to be able to go to family court and have them put under a person in need of supervision, and that's still not getting done. So at this point, I've had to search the school website to find that there's actually a process for student grievances I didn't even know existed. They don't even know that Title IX exists. But when you're harassed on your sexual orientation or gender, it's a Title IX violation. That hasn't been applied either. So at this point, I mean, the student grievance was adopted in 1995 and hasn't been updated. I was still in high school when this was done. But these kids don't even know it exists. They don't even know what Title IX is. So how are they supposed to file a grievance on Title IX if they don't know what it is? These kids have tried to get help all through middle school, and it's not happening. If the teachers are kicking kids out of class on a regular basis, where do they go when they get kicked out? Because if they're getting kicked out on a regular basis and nothing's happening, who are they going to that's dropping the ball after they've gotten kicked out of class on a regular basis? Because at some point, it's not getting applied.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I just want to introduce myself. I'm Deepika Bakshi. I was running as a write-in candidate tonight. I'm sorry to hear. I've been watching the videos from prior board meetings because I was not watching them live. It is heartbreaking to hear situations like that being brought up by parents. For sitting here tonight and hearing that the board, you're all in agreement that something needs to be done. And here's so many different parts of long-term. What is the root? What is what supervision do we need? What can be done immediately? What can be done temporarily? What about long-term? And the question that keeps coming to my mind is, being that we're such a small community, we're such a prominent community, and so many prominent members outside of the district who live in Millbrook, is what can be done on a community level basis. So I like to talk about myself, so I can only relate to what I've seen, what I've done. When my first grader came home and said, you know, mommy, there's a student in the class, the kids make fun of the color of her skin and because she has a big belt. And I said, well, one, you be that kid's friend. And two, I sent a card to the teacher, to that child's parent to come on a play date and take a karate class with my child. So not every parent's going to do that, not every parent can do that. But what can we do on a community level where we're so lucky we don't have to, it seems like we don't have to deal with issues like worrying about teenage pregnancy or how to not join a gang or how to not, you know, deal cocaine, like other districts that are not too far away. So what can we do? Where are the parents of these children that are the bullies? I haven't heard, and obviously this is my first time, I haven't heard what's been done to reach out to them. How can we bring them in? Maybe these so quote unquote bullies need to be shown kindness. I feel like we're hearing so much about the victims, how they're being impacted, but we also need to see what is that root, I think, like Laura said, and what can be done immediately to stop them. I think, you know, suspension, that's great for temporary, but that's going to keep happening. And like Terry said, you know, expulsion is not really going to be a great ultimatum. So I'm just interested to, if, you know, whether I'm on the board or not, honestly, I'm very interested in these issues. That being my child is in 3rd grade. And, you know, as a parent too, when my child was going through some difficult times this year, I would send her to the school psychologist. I talked to the school psychologist, said, look out for my child. She's going through this and this. And there was feedback. What can we do to have more of that? So it was really nice to see all of you here today. I'm excited to see that everyone does seem to be on the page in same page in different ways. And maybe I'll get to work with all of you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right. All right. Financials and warrants. For the motion. For the second.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments? Just Kevin, the $30,000 for the school lunch fund, is that just
30, I believe it's 35.
I think it's 30,059 is the check. Yeah, I mean it's a lot.
Okay.
What is that check for?
Actually, I would have to look and get back to you.
Okay, yeah,
Sorry, if you have questions, maybe I could prepare a little bit better. If you,
no, it was just I don't remember seeing one check for $30,000 before. I didn't know if this was one of those where we realized that the price of peanut butter is now $78 a gallon, and now we need to pay for it, or what? I mean, the check's already been written. It's written. Just if you can, just let us know why that, or let it. I don't know if anybody else, but let me know what that one was. All right. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? Any against?
I looked real quickly in the summary report, the warrant for $30,059.50. Is that what you're speaking?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a combination of 10 checks from 8032 to 8047. So it's a summary of all the checks.
Does it say 10 checks?
Oh,
There's a number 10.
Yes, it's number 10. So it's 10 checks.
I thought that was
And
like,
those are the numbers, check number
I got
8032 to 8047.
I guess.
So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, never mind.
Thank you.
So the ones that say 2728, there were 27 checks.
27
under that?
checks, right?
Ah, I didn't know that. It took me 6 years to figure that out. All right. All in favor, did I do that? All in favor? All right, accept letter of resignation from, oh man, from Mrs. Fontanez. Do I have a motion? Do I have a second?
Second.
I just like to say that's a shame, but understand. Any other comments?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? Do we have a motion, or do I have a motion to accept the donation from the Eastern Dutchess Roadrunners Club? Thank you very much.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any comments or questions?
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Very cool.
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Any against? All right, next we'll move. Oops. Next we'll move to President and Vice President's report. The only thing I wanted to go over with you guys, because I think it's in pretty good shape now. You know, we basically have stuff we have to do every month. And if we don't have something that basically says in July, Perry, don't forget, or Board of Ed, don't forget to do this, we'll forget to do that. So we have this file that is broken down by months, and it's really, if there's a special meeting that month, so in July, we'll have an organizational meeting where we reassign everybody and all that. Or if it's a regular meeting, the things that need to be handled at that meeting. So if you take a look, it's something good to have in your head so you know when these things are coming up and get prepared for them. And I think now that we finally got this together, I think Cheryl's going to try to post this on a board drive for us so that you don't have to keep looking for it. But all right. But there's an awful lot of stuff, way more stuff than I wish was really on here, but it's definitely worth your while to take a chance to go through it. I also went to Dutchess County School Board Association. A lot of discussion about the elections, about things that are going on in other districts. There was a lot of discussion about CTI. I can't say enough about Jason. They just added, they had Toyota. So if you went there and took that class, you became out a certified Toyota mechanic. Now they signed a deal with Honda to do the same thing. It also gives you Dutchess Community, Dutchess Community College credit. They're working, they just had I gotta get the name wrong, basically the table where you key in measurements and it cuts metal out so you can use it to build things. They just got one of those donated. One of the companies that is actually doing the addition, I believe, is donating heavy equipment to the school so they can become heavy equipment operators. And the odd thing is, the only thing that they can't seem to find, like the enrollment continues to stay the same or drop, are plumbers. I have no idea why. I mean, plumbers are huge demand right now, but it was a really good presentation. Kelly's going to send me the updated CTI presentation. I'll send it to you all. All right. Anyway, that's my. Howard, you got anything?
Yeah, I do. Want to bring up, since today, for almost everybody, hopefully is aware, today, till 9 o'clock, is the election for the budget and for 2 seats. I'm not one of them this year, so three seats, excuse me, that's right, 3 seats. Everybody, well, some of the people in the district received the Millbrook Central School District special budget, school budget issue. I found out recently and that our citizens in the fellow community members in the Clinton Corners area did not receive this in the mail for, I don't know the reason why. I would like to ask Elliot if you don't mind something else on your plate. I checked into, I didn't receive it either. I live in a development of 46 homes and we didn't get it. Why, I don't know, but I did find out that I went to the Clinton Corners post office and then I spoke to the carrier and went to the Millbrook post office today and was told that Clinton Corners did not receive any and the carrier had a few left over from Millbrook and just handed out what she had. I don't know if it's mandated, not by law, whether we mail these out, which I would think we do. Not everybody goes on the website, especially if they don't have children in the schools. And so what I did find out is now the post office is not what it used to be. So I don't know where the blame is, but I wouldn't do my duty as a board member if I didn't, public funds that used to print it. First, I'd like to know if everything was printed, and I don't know who actually does the mailing. So I would like to find out if the normal printing was done, and secondly, if it was mailed from whoever's supposed to mail it. So we figure there's several hundred homes, mostly in the northeastern part of the school district, that did not receive these. Secondly, I would like to just point out that this is the first, I've been in the district 35 years and I can't swear to it, but most of the times, like here's the Hyde Park and the Pine Plains, they have the save the date and they have how much it's going to go up, 3.5%, 1.5%, or budget increase 1.23% for Hyde Park. The Millbrook one does not list the percentage that it was going up. Why?
I believe I was one of the people proofreading it, and I believe it was in the front part where the superintendent spoke about.
Yeah, it is 1.83%.
That's correct.
Right. Normally it was there. Secondly, which I don't want to, since you were one of the ones proofreading it, the hours which on Pine Plains and Hyde Park are prominently displayed for voting is displayed on page 3, and I'll use the magnifying glass to get the hours of our voting. I don't know why this wasn't caught. Now, thank you, Laura, for making it big. Please remember to vote on May 17th. But in the future, if we could take a page from our neighbors and try to make it large to see hours that people could vote, I would be much appreciated, because I can't read the hours using a magnifying glass. And I know I'm no spring chicken, but I used to, it would be easier if it was proudly displayed.
Here, not for here, but do you have a couple of people's names, again, not for the,
Yes,
now.
obviously.
that you could check to see if they were on the mailing list and maybe if
There's
not?
no mailing list. It goes to a postal customer in the zip codes that are done. Like my home, I received the Hyde Park and the Pine Plains. Some people get the Rhinebeck one. Even though we're not in this district, it's an overlap. So.
I hope we didn't get it either.
All right, well, thank you. Thank you for saying that, because there was a problem with distributing of this, and if there was, if it's not the post office, then the taxpayer of this district should not pay for services that were not rendered. That's where I'm going with this. Okay, Elliot? Thank you.
All right, superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all. So a few shout outs. We had our first graders enjoy a restaurant tour of our little town of Millbrook to help generate ideas for their upcoming persuasive opinion writing unit. So they went to the Millbrook Diner and they sampled grilled cheese sandwiches, the Millbrook Deli to try chicken fingers and fries, and then went to Babette's Kitchen where they enjoyed different types of cookies. So it was a nice community affair. We thank those businesses for participating in this event. And our students and staff enjoyed it thoroughly. So I'm looking forward to reading their persuasive opinions to see what they enjoyed most. And it's just fun to include the community, so thank you. The Center for the Prevention of Child Abuse visited Elm students and will be visiting Alden students this week. This program assists children in distinguishing between affectionate and inappropriate touches and instructs them on how and what to do if someone breaks the private parts rule. I sat in on a couple of sessions in Elm, and it was very impactful and very appropriate. So we're looking forward to seeing them in Alden to inform our students on how to keep themselves safe. The National Junior Honor Society was last week. 13 students were inducted. It was nice to see board trustees there and an administrative team supporting our students along with our families and their friends. And thank you to Dawn Harkenrider and Nicole Barnes for coordinating such a special event. And then I have the prom. The prom was last Friday. It was at the Villa Borghese. Did I say that correctly? The theme was Enchanted Garden, and there was just a flurry of activity and excitement among those attending. I slipped in a little bit just to check the scene out. Everybody looked fabulous and they were having a great time. And thank you, Kathy Mattis. She's the senior advisor and she helped coordinate all of that.
Can we not do prom on Friday the 13th? There was something
We were
wrong.
testing fate.
I just like
Right.
worried me.
And just a couple of things. The Thorn Building Community Center on Franklin Avenue is having an open house on Saturday, May 28th. So they're inviting the community and all around to come in and just check out their progress. I'm just trying to figure out ways that we can partner with them and use their space in innovative and creative ways.
Should
Like
we invite them to come to a board meeting and just sort of give us an update on where they are? And I mean, I don't know if that's something they're interested in doing, but if we get them to come in and maybe we could bounce some ideas on how we might take advantage of that facility.
Sure.
Ever use that in the past?
For administrative offices.
We used it a long time
Years
ago,
ago, with the
For
admin.
administrative offices.
but we also used it for a lot of stuff. I mean, we had the haunted house in the basement, which was a complete freak show. We had the Boy Scouts met there, all their moving up used to be on the stage. It's been used for a lot of stuff. That's where we store all one of the sports. Something was stored in the basement, but, and I don't know what's left. I mean, I saw plans a long time ago about what they were gonna do with it, but I mean, maybe they have, I don't know, maybe they have rooms that we can use or I don't know. Anyway, let's reach out to them and see if they would mind.
I'm going to skip over the AT&T cell. We'll put to the end of my report. We're also going to add in the change orders. Okay. So we'll skip to that to school food services. I just wanted to say, in spite of the ongoing staffing shortages, our school food services team continues to prepare delicious and nutritious meals. We are definitely struggling with staffing in our kitchens. And so just trying to figure out ways that we can recruit and retain. We have spoken about possibly coming to the board at a future board meeting, maybe the next board meeting, just to talk about personnel, department. This is who we have, these are our needs, and just start kind of figuring out what we're going to do to fill these positions. They are the backbone of the district, just like the business office is the backbone of the district, PPS, backbone of the district. So we might ensure that there is appropriate staffing that's.
Well, and not just for school lunch, you're gonna come with all of it. Right?
Oh, yeah, with all of the departments. I just wanted to thank Caroline and Elliot and Victoria and the administrative team in helping put this presentation that we brought forth to the board together. It took a lot of pulling data and sort of creating the narrative so that we can make the proposals that are going to help remedy the issues that we're facing these days around bullying, around social emotional wellness, around making sure that our kids have what they need academically, socially, emotionally, the support that they need to be successful. There's a lot of work to do, and we're looking to the board and each other in our community to make this a community approach, like you were saying, Dina, is that we can't do this alone. We need each other. And I know that we have been disagreeing and we've been in conflict at times, but I think that our end goal is the same goal, is to make sure that our kids have a fantastic experience here in the Millbrook Central School District. So we will sometimes agree to disagree, but I think that the more minds on this work, the better plans we're going to have for short-term and for long-term. And strategic planning, we haven't spoken about strategic planning, but I wanted the community to know, the rest of the board to know, that the project team, which is made up of administration and board members, has been working with the steering team that has administrators, board members, and various staff members from Elm, Alden, middle school and high school in drafting up vision and a mission and values. So we last met, the project team looked to the steering committee for feedback on the newly drafted mission, vision, and values. And a lot of the things that came up through our video asked from the community and our kids in our discussions, student discussions, of the themes that were popping up were academics, innovative academic experiences, innovation from the opportunities of student voice and choice. There's a typo in there, sorry. Communications, pathways to be more effective on every level, from the teacher in the classroom to our communication with our parents, district-wide, board communication, lots of layers of communication. How can we enhance and refine what we already have in place, and interpersonal relationships, as well as structure and schedules, rethinking the traditional school day. And then Elliot had two items that, and you'll see underneath the COVID updates, we've moved to a high transmission. We ask that, continue with the mitigation practices. We have lots of testing kits here, washing your hands, stay home if you're sick, wear a mask if you indoors is what the new guidance is saying as well. The alert from the local health department. If you feel comfortable, it's optional, of course. And then we have been struggling, our nurses have been struggling with contact tracing. The new guidance that came out said that we were no longer doing contact tracing, but we said, well, if we can continue doing it in a manageable way, we will do so. So we have been doing the contact tracing and sending notes to parents. It has become an overwhelming job for our nurses, 200, 300 communications with families. And so we are going to start pulling back and start pushing out more information of how to keep safe and healthy, and move along the lines of what the CDC and local health department is saying. It's a responsibility, our own personal responsibility to, if we are exposed, we isolate. We wear masks if we need to at the end of our quarantine. We stay home if we're sick. If we're near anybody, we let them know that they might have been they've been exposed to somebody positive. So we're drafting a letter to our community stating all of that we're aligning with the original guidelines.
But within the school, so if my child is in contact with another student in the classroom, that the child that's tested positive, their parent's not going to know who their child was around all day, right? I mean, if we pull back from that, that's the type of contact tracing you're talking about, not being notified within the school.
I thought the guidance called for us to provide more general contact tracing, not student by student, but
With
student
child
in
your
class A
classroom.
has an infection
Yeah.
without the legwork, just a,
So what happened, it's been very difficult for the secondary schools. So easier for Elm and Alden because they're in a contained environment. So they're traveling with their class all day. But what our secondary nurses are finding out is that it's going to be every class, 9 periods, and then the bus, sports. And so it's unmanageable for them to continue that practice.
Yeah, Laura, it's very difficult. A lot of schools are just going with the generic email that goes out to let the parents know that someone was, infected, but that's about it. I mean, the requirements have changed drastically with taking that responsibility off the schools. So I think we're doing an unbelievable job if they're still doing all of that, especially at the secondary level with 8 periods and common times and things like that. That's unbelievable. I didn't realize we were still doing all of that.
Why wouldn't we just, like they said, put out an email that says a 9th grader with
Right.
tested
Exactly.
positive? That's the end of it.
more,
Yeah,
very
because
generic.
Grade, two
They
10th
may have
graders
lunch
and
with other
9th graders.
grades.
But-
They may have mixed classes. They may have lunch with other grades. They're on sports with other grades. They're on buses with other grades.
But that's, I mean, in all
So-
honesty, it hasn't really
Yeah.
done anything. I mean,
No,
And
you
that's
know,
the
it hasn't
issue.
slowed this mess
Yeah.
down.
Right, that's the issue.
So
is
I
that
think
even the
just, I mean, we
information's
can't
not
call
helping.
out the person by name, but we could say a 9th grade student, 2 10th grade students, and, and parents will just have to, I guess, watch for symptoms.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's basically what's been done, Perry. You're correct. I can
Is that doable?
get a few samples, Laura, too.
Is that doable, you think? To go more like a generic thing rather than doing, because you're not really doing any tracing at that point. All you're doing is saying, this kid tested positive. That kid, I mean, that specific one, but a 9th grader,
Yeah.
8th grader, a 3rd grader.
I think the amount of communication that's going to cause being that generic is gonna become deafening also. Where people are just gonna see like another email,
So
another
does,
email. Like we were already getting the conversation about like, oh, I just got this email, yesterday, and the nurse was like, nope, this is another. You know?
Yeah, one of the nurses said, I sent a couple to this particular family, and they're like, oh yeah, we received it, and they're like, this is from last week, this is a new one. So it is like over communicated, like sometimes we over survey.
so does it make
Our
sense? I mean,
community.
you're already doing a sort of a weekly email anyway, keep those numbers in there. And then-
Just say the grade.
yeah, and then at the lower grade levels where we could easily email just a classroom, it might still make sense.
So right now, when it's like, middle school or high school or wherever, this many kids tested positive and there's the 200 close contacts, those 200 don't quarantine, right?
No,
Unless they have symptoms, right.
So it's just.
Awareness.
Information, right, so like if they were symptomatic.
And
And
there's,
the importance of the personal responsibility that, allergy season and all, we have to still be very, vigilant because some of those symptoms are the same as COVID symptoms. And I think a lot of folks assume it's allergies because this is the time for those, but it's, about making sure that it's not COVID before we go out to school or sports or even sports on the weekends. Because we are right now in a high transmission area, so.
and even with Elm and Alden, it can be hard because seating charts change. So it's always the upkeep of a seating chart. Whether it's the bus seating chart, it's classroom seating chart, it's the cafeteria seating chart. It's making sure that continues to be updated and shared with the nurses who are doing this tracing.
And when.
Yeah, I just wouldn't trace anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it was always seemed ridiculous to me to have a seating chart when they're not staying in their seats, they're wandering all around and, kids coughing on each other and they're outside running with each other. It seems to me if you just said we had, and maybe it's once a week, there's three positive tests the week of whatever in the 3rd grade. And, and then parents, hopefully the parents will take that as I better keep a closer eye. Maybe, maybe it's not just allergies. But I think, especially as these numbers, I mean, I can't believe these numbers.
It's
I mean, not
contact,
that I
the
don't
contact
believe
tracing
them,
ones,
but
right?
It's insane.
So what do you think about, I'm trying to send out that weekly number, not having the contact
Yes,
tracing,
right.
but have the positive
Yeah,
right.
numbers, and I can break it
Yeah.
out by
Grades.
grade.
Yeah.
And then it can be posted on the website.
In cases where it is easy to report, if you know a student in an elementary or first grade class, that smaller group.
Mhm.
I think the guidance required us to do some level of, not individual contact tracing, but at least reporting to parents.
Yeah, it could be on the web, it could be in person, it could be email, it could be on the website, but I can do both, an alert through Blackboard and post it on our website.
And you said we have lots of tests available to hand out.
Yes.
And I know my son came home with one day. That was great. It's already come in handy. And then,
Yeah. Our nurse is like, enough.
and then I think the post office is also sending them out free again if you order.
Oh, okay.
That just
Thanks.
started, I think, today.
There's some, like our church has a whole slew of them on the table in the back. So there's other places too that can provide them.
And
If I
let's
could say,
just-
if I could say one thing, just parents, if your kids have symptoms and they test negative at night, test them again in the morning. That's how small of a window it is sometimes between a negative and a positive test. And, it's just watch out for the community. That's all I have to say.
The Dutchess County Health Department hasn't said anything about going, I think it was Connecticut and maybe some county in New Jersey, where they basically have gone back to mandatory masks. And I think there was even one where they were talking about going remote again because the number of cases has just gone crazy. Dutchess County Health Department hasn't said anything like that.
No, just recommending masking if you're in indoor spaces, but that's a recommendation.
Right, recommendation.
Okay. All right, good.
And the students at the middle and upper school can still audit their classes
If they're home for COVID.
if they're home for
If
COVID. Okay.
it's COVID related.
Cool.
And then just two pieces that Elliot has, the cell phone tower, and change orders.
Okay, so, change orders we'll have, I think, for the next meeting, right? So that's an easy one. It's the high school vestibule project. Our general contractors were going to not be responsible for specific modifications to the door access system and the fire alarm system that had to be done as part of the vestibule project. While they were on site, they had their subcontractor for electrical work present, and they just had that firm execute the work because it was cheaper, faster, and easier to have them do it while the walls were open. So verbal exchanges between the district, the architects, and the vendor. Long story short, we're just going to be paying Ferrari and Sons that money that we would have subcontracted out ourselves to these other vendors. So their sub took care of it. We're just going to move the money to be able to compensate them for it. So that's the easy one. AT&T cell tower conversation. Circling back to our previous chat at I think the last meeting or the one before that, I don't remember, the board expressed some substantive concerns about what modifications to this tower would look like to upgrade it to make it 5G compatible, or capable, I should say. In discussion with the lease broker, we came to a place where AT&T said, we just want to renew the lease as is. In previous, I guess they looked back at the lease agreement that we had in place or have in place currently that's going to expire. Any modification to the existing tower was done through a lease agreement amendment. And so they said that they would go back to that model of if they change it, when they want to change it, they're going to approach us for an amendment that we would have to authorize said change or it's not happening. The draft agreement had language under bullet number 4 for permitted use that basically says that the landlord shall reasonably cooperate in obtaining permits and blah, blah, blah. And basically saying that unless we had an issue, specifically, we'd let them do what they want to do. They've agreed to redline that entire section out of the agreement.
Yeah. So
with the board's support, I would like to submit the modified agreements to legal counsel for us to redline and mark up, or them to do it on our behalf. But I would be sending that with the feedback we got from our insurance carrier about an additional indemnification clause that they recommend we include. So that's pretty much it. Basically, they're asking us just renew the lease in kind as is under the terms previously communicated. And then if and when they're ready to go 5G, they'll approach us with a proposed amendment that we would then have the right to refuse.
And do you know if they came forward with a 5G, I guess it's kind of, if they came forward with 5G and we said no, would they then take the tower down?
I guess they would have to decide if it's worth it for them to maintain the agreement as is or remove it and then activate whatever out clauses either party would have. And so I would want that explicitly laid out by council. And
But
they
we
work it out.
still have the option of when it renews the next time, if we want to just cut it.
Right. Right, and I think we got to a place where we're preserving the district's right of refusal.
Good.
To make any changes or to back out.
Okay.
So if the board's in support of that, I'll send everything to council and we'll have a resolution for you as soon as they have it prepared.
Do we need to address like the whole safety aspect of it? If they, like now, if we have time, would go to 5G, already, that whole thing, more radiation, blah, blah, blah.
I would think that if they propose an amendment to modify and change the frequencies and all the things, we have every right in the world to ask for them to provide documentation and support.
Safety.
So yeah, whatever we want to know. I mean, it's right, if, as a landlord, we have the right to say, if you want us to consider this, we require the following, and if they don't provide it, then the landlord body can decide if it's not worth pursuing.
And, because it was discussed at one meeting that like, maybe they could be like, yeah, here you go, here it is. Like, can we kind of mandate, like, it has to come from a reliable source outside of their capacity type thing?
I mean, I didn't get that far into it, but I would say
Okay.
that when the time comes, I would certainly say this is what the board wants.
Okay.
And if you don't get what you want, you make a decision based on that.
Good, thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Elliot.
That's it.
All right. Let's see, who's next? Principal's report.
He's still getting ice cream.
Nice. Rather have ice cream than come talk to us.
No,
He's
That
probably,
is what he said.
he's probably got those ears on.
probably still touring.
All right, let's do facilities.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Back to me.
Yeah.
Facilities Committee had a brief meeting this past week. We met with the Friends of the Gazebo representatives. They are very actively pursuing the restoration project. We did share with them again that the Elm Drive gazebo is going to be addressed as part of our overall facilities condition assessment done by our new architects and engineers. That report is still pending. We're hoping to have it by the end of June. I'd like to have it to present to the board, at least in draft form, by the last board meeting of the school year. I did communicate to the Friends of the Gazebo that until we have somewhat of an assessment of a scope of work recommended by these design professionals, that we're really not in a position to speak to funding budgets. And, they're very excited about doing the work, and they were operating largely off of a previous bid or proposal that was brought forward by one specific vendor. I did remind them, and for anybody listening at home that's associated with the Friends of the Gazebo, we would love an opportunity to renovate any part of our school district with any sort of donations. That notwithstanding, it has to be done per state code. We are responsible to the New York State Department of Education for all design projects, and so those plans would have to go to them for approval and then out to bid. And only at that time would we even have an understanding of what it might cost. The assessment done by the architects is going to give us a ballpark construction figure, which will be helpful for the board in making decisions on whether or not to consider this as a standalone project, or if we wanted to consider it as part of a larger capital project. So perhaps a middle school component, a high school component, an Elm Drive component, and the gazebo as part of that as a larger referendum proposed to the community. But we just reminded the folks of all the processes and procedures that we have to follow to make something like this happen. I think at the end of the meeting, they were pretty receptive to it, albeit, a little dissatisfied that it's going to take longer than I think they wanted to. But it's certainly an opportunity to partner with our community if we can manage it and support.
Elliot, do you know if the Friends of the Gazebo have registered as a 501c?
I believe it was in progress. I think it was completed, but I'm not 100% sure.
Okay, but it's good that they're
Yeah,
starting.
they're moving along. They're fundraising.
Yeah.
They have a lot of excited
They're
folks on their
collecting
side.
money, right. As they're a charity.
Yeah, I think the feedback we've gotten back from them so far is that they'd like it to be restored to its original form, which is a little bit different than the way it looks right now. They've provided us some photographs of how it looks back when.
Right.
You know, and I think for us, we have to, part of our decision-making process is not just going to be the cost, but the educational benefit of investing and maintaining that structure as is where is. So that's something that we'll discuss in further detail when the time comes.
Thank you.
And you guys are gonna make sure that that place is buttoned up.
I walked it this morning. We've got snow fence wrapped all the way around it, so it's not easy to get in and out of. And our grounds guys regularly check it when they're working the area.
Do we have to put a sign up on it, or is there one that says like? Right, or, you know, like, God forbid someone did jump the fence and run out, you know what I mean? Like, I know we had it at the fields, or we were talking about that at the fields during COVID. I don't know if we have to legally have something up there, or if the fence just basically says, warning, don't come in.
I think it's pretty explicit. It's all the way they're kind of wrapped up.
Just trying
but
to
if you like
CYA
I
anything.
can totally put a sign up if that's something that.
No, you don't have to.
And Elliot, will the architects tell us if they think it's secure enough to stand until we get to the point of renovating it after a vote?
Well, I'll talk to them about what they're going to include in the report. I think part of it's going to be, you know, how structurally sound is it? You know, it is a poured concrete base, at least the ground part of it, and then it's a wood superstructure. So
The 2 or 3 of those posts are
Pretty
almost
well.
completely rotted out. I'm just wondering if we need to do anything to help secure it. between now
And
and then.
my concern, and again, without having tested it, I assume based on age and condition that there is some hazardous material in the form of potentially lead paint. And so even securing it would aerosol that paint, and I don't want to take any chances until the architects and engineers tell me that we can test it and decide if it's worth shoring up, if they make recommendations. You know, the extent of what it would take to shore it up might not make sense for us, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm just curious. I mean,
Yeah.
these are people who are going to come out and vote for a capital project. They can.
I completely agree. I think if we can make it work where it makes everybody happy, that would be wonderful. And again, if the district's going to invest there, I want it to be great for kids. And I would want to really work with our Elm Drive principal and then our educational leaders to see what we could use it for kids and community. But certainly putting our kids first.
And I mean, one of those little keep out signs couldn't cost a couple bucks, right?
Sure.
I mean, unless anybody has a problem with it. Sounds like you were already in the gazebo, right?
Just do that on the outside.
But I mean, putting a sign up that says keep out, just, you know, probably wouldn't hurt. All right. Yeah, are we still on the same schedule for this facilities report?
Yeah, you know, if we get the assessment done by the end of the school year, we can start, you know, and again, dovetailing with our strategic planning initiative, we really want to look at our physical plant needs, our system needs, and then our program needs, tying together into a way that makes sense for us financially and logistically.
Okay. All right, the enrollment report is there for your consideration. Any questions or comments, concerns? MEF report? Please.
Okay. Yeah, so the Taste of Millbrook is coming up very, very soon. Saturday, June 4th, but it's Taste to Go, 1 to 5 p.m. You can go on and purchase your totes right now from the website, which is all the kinks are out of the website. So go on there and there's up-to-date information. So Millbrook Educational Foundation.org. And the totes are $100, 2 bottles of Millbrook wine, 2 glasses, a fancy bottle opener, and there are lots of different goodies from local Millbrook businesses. So yeah, come, 1 to 5 to get your tote and then hang out for, let's see, that day there'll be wood-fired pizzas from the pizza truck. You know, they have their,
Oh,
yeah, I know, the food trucks
Cool.
around. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else, Chris, that I'm,
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, but we just need people to go and support the schools and buy a tote, mainly.
All right. Any
Straight to the
questions?
point.
yeah, thank you.
How about the PTO report?
PTO, not too much. The only update is that they were giving up 2 scholarships. I think they used to only give out 1, they have 2 of them. They already have the students chosen, and that will happen in June. She's talking about like the Kindness Club, how, I know the younger kids love it. And then with the staff appreciation, teacher appreciation, they are actually doing this week the bus drivers, like the transportation guys and girls. And I think next week is the high school appreciation. And the only thing she wanted me to mention was that they do have open positions. They're gonna have a meeting in June, so anyone who wants to join the PTO,
They're also doing a luncheon for our custodians and for our food service workers too.
yeah, they said, she did say that last time we did the
Yeah,
lunch.
this week.
Yeah,
It's
and they
nice.
did do, yep, lunch people, custodian people, bus drivers, plus the staff. So it's nice, because I don't think they were able to do everybody
Yeah,
in past years, I don't know, but it's nice that they got to everybody. We saw pictures of some of the lunches and stuff they put together. It's really nice. Very nice.
Cool. Next is the suspension incident report. The only comment I have is that one out of school in the 8th grade. I mean, is all that one incident? Disruptive behavior, inappropriate language. Sorry, should keep this on. Lewd, profane, vulgar, abusive behavior, use personal electronic devices during the school day, insubordination. I mean, is that all one incident?
We'll tell you. Because it says number 1.
And why, well, I guess I shouldn't ask, but why one day out of school? I mean, that would seem like, you know, even if she'd go a day per offense. Anyway, I don't want to open that all back up, but I mean, that's just. Anyway. All right, future agenda items. We moved the, since we realized that a lot of the volleyball team was probably on the senior trip. So we tried to get them to cancel their senior trip, come talk to us, but they didn't seem amenable to that. So that'll be moving to the next meeting, not the 23rd, is that our emergency meeting or whatever it is? 23rd, I think. But the meeting after that, that's where that'll move to. If there's anything else that you guys wanted to discuss, and spend some time, if you have a chance, going through that. It used to be called a tickle file. Anyway.
Are we bringing in the valedictorian and salutatorian? I remember last year when I was watching, we invited them remote along with like the retiring teachers. Are you doing that?
I don't, it's not on, well, we haven't done those agendas yet,
Oh,
but
okay.
we probably will. I actually, something I should have mentioned, so I actually have the honor of having, and Laura and I have the honor of having breakfast at the. Yeah,
Is it different?
see,
Where?
it's up in Rhinebeck, it's super nice place,
Yeah,
but with the valedictorian and the salutatorian and the two of us.
Oh,
It's very
nice.
cool. But yeah, I mean,
That's good.
we should celebrate this.
Yeah, I just remember watching
Yeah.
last year.
We already invited the retirees for the first meeting, and all of the teachers up for tenure for the second meeting of the month, so we can add the Sal and Val.
Yeah,
I
Like we
think,
did last
yeah, when I
year.
was, right.
but you also, or maybe it's already happened, the awards ceremony. I always get all these meetings mixed
No, the
up where
award
they,
ceremony
you know,
is June 7th
Yeah,
and
it is
June
June.
14th for June 7th for underclassmen and June 14th for the seniors at the.
Those
high
are-
school, I believe.
those are like
And
the
that's off the
reason
top
we
of
do
my
this.
head.
Yeah, are they
Yeah.
at the board meetings? Jeez.
No.
No,
they're
no,
at the
no,
high
these are,
school.
No,
but
at
we're invited to these meetings to go and cheer
Did
them
you get the
on.
invite yet? I don't know.
I haven't seen it.
I'll have Cheryl send those out.
Okay, yeah, this June 7th is a board meeting.
Yeah, it's during the day,
Oh.
9 o'clock, I think.
Oh, it's during the day.
But I
But
was
June
gonna-
14th is in the evening. That's the senior
Okay.
award ceremony. That's in the
Oh,
evening.
okay, that's.
It's funny that Howard brought this up because I actually brought it in, because, and I know it's a bigger school district, but like they have pictures of their people. So I was gonna like, I don't know who does the newsletter, I know you probably get this.
We have, they're in ours.
Was it Hyde Park one?
No,
No,
I.
ours.
Sal around the
Oh.
cover.
Yeah,
You have
they're in
it?
the
Okay.
cover. Yeah.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah.
There you go, Brookmead.
Oh.
Beautiful, yeah. I think I'm gonna stay 3 days, just to.
Is it a?
That's nice.
What is it?
It's like, what would you compare it to? It's sort of like, it reminds me of Troutbeck. You remember Troutbeck, you know, where you could stay, but they also had events that were in the, whatever room. All right, and again, we'll make sure that we get the Sal and Val on one of our board meetings, and we'll make sure we get all those award things, because that's also where I think where all the scholarships are given out. It's
We
great.
want to know the graduation dates and all of that too.
Yeah. Graduation is fine, because we all get together and realize we can't figure out how to put the cap down
But
on.
who does?
So it's, well, Caroline does. Caroline's our
Every
expert.
year.
She goes
Thanks
around.
for this.
She's our design.
Every year.
Anyway, next is,
We all have our roles.
that's right.
Wardrobe.
All right, so that's,
Thank you.
our next is to go to executive session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
The owl has spoken.
Yeah, I was spoken. I'm just glad you got rid of that disco voice you had going.
Well, listen, you guys shared the commute with me on the way home, so I appreciate your company.
All in favor?
Bye.
Anything? All right. How about 10-minute break?
Yeah.
Do what you gotta do. That's it for you, Chris. You gotta,
Bye, Gina.
Stay with
Thank
us.
you.
that was nice to meet you, too.